My name is Laura Anderson, and I am 39 years old. For most of my life, people have mistaken my calm for weakness, my patience for passivity, my reluctance to raise my voice for an inability to act. My boyfriend Ronald Anderson used to say it like it was a compliment. "You're soft, Laura," he'd tell me with a smile, usually when I was setting up folding chairs for a poetry reading or wiping chalk dust off the cafe menu board. You always see the best in people. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Soft felt like kindness. Soft felt like trust. Soft felt like love. Ronald and I owned a business together, or at least I thought we did. The Page and Perch, a community bookstore and cafe, tucked into a quiet corner of the neighborhood, was my dream. Long before it was ever ours. I was the Page. I curated the books, hosted author talks, ran children's story hours, remembered regulars' names and coffee orders. The store didn't just sell books, it held people. Ronald was the Perch. Numbers, payroll vendors, contracts, the hard edges of the business. He liked to say he handled reality so I could focus on vibes. I didn't argue. I hated spreadsheets. I trusted him completely. We weren't rich, but we were stable, or so I thought. 2 weeks ago, my phone rang while I was restocking the poetry shelf. The caller ID read Flower Power Bakery. I smiled before answering. They supplied our pastries, and their croissants were half the reason people came in early. Laura Anna, the owner, said, and her voice was tight. "I'm really sorry, but Ronald's last 3 checks bounced. Almost $4,000. I can't keep extending credit." Bounced. The word didn't make sense. We just had one of our best weekends of the year. I apologized, promised I'd cover it personally, and hung up with my heart pounding not in anger, but confusion. Ronald was away. Another business leadership retreat. He'd been attending a lot of those lately. I didn't call him. I've never been good at confrontation, but I am observant. And that night, after locking up the store, I logged into the business accounts. I technically had access to accounts I'd never needed to use. I stared at the screen for an hour. It wasn't just Flower Power. Our book distributor, the coffee supplier, late, overdue, final notices, and then I saw the transfers. Large round numbers. One recipient. Apex Strategic Solutions, LLC. $10,000 in February, $15,000 in April, $8,000 just last week. I scrolled back further, 18 months, over $160,000. The room tilted, my hands went numb. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't mismanagement. It was careful, repeated, intentional. When Ronald came home 2 days later, he looked successful, tanned, confident, new sunglasses, a leather briefcase that cost more than our monthly rent. "Hey, softy," he said lightly, kissing my cheek. "Miss me?" I didn't raise my voice. "Who is Apex Strategic Solutions?" I asked. His smile didn't fade, it snapped. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. He thought I wouldn't do anything. Ronald didn't answer right away. He set his briefcase down carefully like the floor might scratch it, and rolled his shoulders, as if easing out of a long, productive day. The smell of expensive cologne followed him into the kitchen, sharp, unfamiliar. Nothing like the coffee and paper scent that used to cling to him after a day at the shop. "Apex Strategic Solutions," he repeated as though tasting the words. "Why are you digging around in the accounts?" "I got a call from the bakery," I said. My voice surprised even me. It didn't shake. 3 checks bounced. Almost $4,000. He scoffed. Actually scoffed, a quick, dismissive sound that cut deeper than yelling ever could. "Laura, don't worry your head about it," he said, waving a hand. "It's high-level business strategy, diversification. You wouldn't really understand it." I felt something twist in my chest. Not anger yet, recognition. "Over $160,000 went to that account," I said. "Our suppliers aren't getting paid. That's not strategy. That's bleeding us dry." He straightened then. The casual charm slid off his face like a mask replaced by something colder, sharper. "You're being emotional," he said. "This is exactly why I handle the money." "It's our money," I replied, "and that's theft." He laughed not kindly, not nervously. He laughed because he thought he'd already won. "You want honesty," he said, leaning against the counter. "Fine. Yes, I took it. And yes, it's mine." I felt the words land like physical blows. "You're admitting it," I said quietly. "Of course I am," he replied. "I built this business. You host readings and read picture books to kids. I built the infrastructure. I earned that money." I stared at him, trying to reconcile this man with the one I'd trusted, the one I'd loved, the one I'd planned a future around. And what he continued, voice dropping, "Are you going to do about it?" He smiled, then, not warm, not loving, but confident in my supposed weakness. "We're not married. The partnership agreement is a mess. You don't have the money for a lawyer, Laura. You're too soft for a real fight. You'll cry, I'll apologize, and you'll get over it. You always do." The hurt was immediate, sharp, almost paralyzing. But beneath it, something else settled in cold, precise, clear. He was right about one thing. I didn't want a loud fight, but I wasn't weak. I smiled. Just a little. "Watch me," I said. He laughed, shaking his head. "You're adorable." Then he walked upstairs to unpack, already done with the conversation. I didn't follow him. I went to my office, I turned on my computer, and I stayed awake all night. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry either. I sat in my office chair with a mug of cold coffee, the glow of the laptop turning the room an artificial blue, and I did the one thing Ronald had never imagined I would do. I looked closely. Every transfer, every statement, every invoice. I downloaded them all, saving copies in neatly labeled folders the way I cataloged first editions at the shop. Date, amount, recipient, pattern. The more I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't reckless. It was elegant in its cruelty. Clean, consistent, designed to be overlooked by someone who trusted him. Apex Strategic Solutions, LLC, appeared again and again like a watermark. When I searched it, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a real consultancy. It was a shell company registered 18 months ago. The sole listed agent was Marlene Anderson, Ronald's sister. The woman he used to tell me was bad with money and always chasing shortcuts. There were fake invoices, too. I found them by accident, at first noticing numbers that didn't line up. Orders for hundreds of books we never received. Inflated totals. The difference quietly redirected before vendors were paid late, just late enough to look like cash flow problems instead of theft. By dawn, my hands ached and my head throbbed, but my mind felt terrifyingly calm. When Ronald came downstairs irritated that I hadn't made coffee, I was sealing a large envelope. "What's your problem now?" he asked. "You're still sulking." "I'm running an errand," I said. He sighed, already bored. "I'll move some money around for the bakery. Just stop being dramatic. We have a business to run." "Understood," I said. At the post office, I paid for certified mail with return receipt. The clerk weighed the envelope and raised an eyebrow. "Heavy," she said. "You have no idea," I replied. "I didn't go home." I packed a bag and checked into a cheap hotel on the edge of town. Ronald started texting that night, then calling, then threatening. I didn't answer. I wasn't fighting him. I had already reported him. The silence after I left was not peaceful. It was violent in its own way, a vacuum that Ronald filled almost immediately. By the third day, his messages had shifted from confused to furious. "Where are you?" "This isn't funny, Laura. You're destroying everything we built." I didn't respond. I was learning something new about myself. Silence wasn't avoidance, it was control. The first letter from his lawyer arrived a week later. Thick paper, aggressive tone, accusations dressed up as concern. According to them, Ronald was the sole stabilizing force in the business, and I was an emotionally driven partner whose vanity projects, children's story hour, free poetry nights, local author events had bled the company dry. The $160,000 sent to Apex Strategic Solutions a last-ditch effort to secure liquidity that I and my softness couldn't comprehend. I laughed when I read it. Not because it was funny, because it was horrifying how confidently false it was. My lawyer, Thomas Hale, didn't laugh. He read everything twice, then leaned back and sighed. "This is going to be ugly," he said. "And I need to be honest with you. You're probably going to lose the business." The words landed harder than Ronald's betrayal. The Page and Perch wasn't just income. It was identity. It was community. It was the place where people celebrated birthdays and mourned losses, where kids learned to love stories, and lonely people learned to belong. And now, because of a partnership I trusted too much, it was being locked up by arbitration notices and frozen accounts. Within a month, the doors were closed. The shelves sat dark behind the glass. Handwritten notes from regulars were taped to the window. "We miss you. Please reopen." This place mattered. I couldn't bring myself to read them all. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin. The air smelled faintly of detergent and damp concrete. Legal fees ate through my savings like acid. Ronald, meanwhile, stayed in the townhouse. He posted photos, gym selfies, business brunches, quotes about resilience and growth. If you didn't know the truth, you'd think he was thriving. Then came the entitlement. A Venmo request appeared one night. $1,750. Your half of the rent. I ignored it. He sent it again and again. Then an email. You are trying to make me homeless. You are still legally responsible for half the lease. Grow up. Thomas told me not to respond. Everything would be bundled into the dissolution. But the nerve of it, the sheer audacity, made my hands shake. The unpredictable subplot arrived the following Tuesday. I was checking my mailbox when a white luxury SUV rolled up to the curb. Ronald's sister Marlene stepped out, dressed like she was headed to a networking event rather than my crumbling apartment building. Laura, she said brightly, walking closer than she needed to. We need to talk. She smiled, but her eyes were calculating. You're in over your head, she continued. This isn't your world. Sign everything over, take the small payout, and walk away before you get really hurt. I recorded the conversation on my phone the entire time. I was losing everything. But the system was finally paying attention. Nothing happened for a long time. That was the cruelest part. Weeks turned into months, and every day felt like punishment for a crime I hadn't committed. I woke up to the rumble of washing machines beneath my floor and went to sleep to the same dull rhythm. I took a 9-to-5 data entry job at a shipping company. Fluorescent lights, gray cubicles, numbers, marching across my screen in endless rows. It paid just enough to keep me afloat, while legal invoices stacked up like quiet threats. Ronald kept pretending he'd won. He launched a consulting brand funded by Apex. His social media became a parade of hashtags and forced optimism. Know your worth, level up. Boss mindset. He posed beside hotel pools and airport lounges, always smiling, always successful. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed him. Some nights I almost did. Then 6 months after I mailed that envelope, a thin, boring letter arrived. No logos, no drama, just official language. We have received your submission. We are evaluating the information provided. That was it. No promise, no timeline. Just confirmation that the gears had begun to turn. I was terrified. I was broke. I had lost my business, my relationship, my old life. And now I was waiting on a system famous for moving slowly and mercilessly. Ronald thought this was still a fight about money. He didn't understand that this was about taxes. And taxes do not negotiate. 3 weeks ago, my phone rang at work. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my chest tightened before I answered. Laura Anna's voice said, sharp and breathless, "Turn on the local news, right now." I pulled it up on my phone, hands shaking. The footage was unmistakable. A familiar white SUV Marlene's being loaded onto a flatbed. Federal agents in dark windbreakers carried boxes out of a high-rise condo. The headline scrolled across the screen, "Federal agents raid local consultant in tax evasion probe." My heart stopped. Then it started racing. An hour later, Thomas called. "They want to talk," he said. "Now. Ronald's lawyer. Conference call." When the line connected, the tone was different. Polite, careful, panicked beneath the surface. Then I heard Ronald. He wasn't muted. "You did this," he was shouting, his voice cracking. "You ruined me." "I told the truth," I said calmly. "That's all." He sobbed then. Actual sobs. Assets seized. Accounts frozen. Computers taken. His sister arrested, trying to wipe hard drives. "You have to call them off," he begged. "Tell them it was a misunderstanding." "They're not my dogs," I said. "They're the IRS." Silence swallowed the line. For the first time since this began, I wasn't waiting anymore. 10 months after I mailed that envelope, the dissolution of the Page and Perch was finalized. It was a bloodbath. The shelves I had dusted by hand, the espresso machine I'd argued for, because it made better crema, the inventory I'd curated title by title, all of it was sold off for pennies on the dollar. After settling the debts Ronald had quietly piled up, I walked away with nothing. Less than nothing, really. I was about $40,000 in legal debt, still living above a laundromat, still typing numbers into a gray system that didn't care who I used to be. Ronald's downfall, meanwhile, was loud. To avoid me becoming the primary witness in his criminal case, he agreed to everything. A notarized confession admitting to the embezzlement of $160,000. A civil judgment for the full amount plus my legal fees and the debts I'd personally covered. Wage garnishment on any future income. He liquidated everything, the car, the watches, the designer bags he'd pretended were investments. He issued a public apology. I posted it in the empty storefront window right where our event flyers used to go. He took a plea deal. Tax evasion? Conspiracy? Minimum security but real time. When the final papers were signed, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt quiet. A week ago, a letter arrived from the U.S. Department of the Treasury. Inside was a check. $24,000, my whistleblower award. Not a fortune, not revenge money, but enough to cover my legal fees. Enough to breathe again. Ronald called me soft. He was right. Soft is patient. Soft waits. Soft doesn't shatter, it wears things down. Water is soft, and water cuts through stone. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. They don't ask directly, of course. They phrase it carefully the way people do when they're really asking whether justice was worth the cost. They say things like, wouldn't it have been easier to just walk away, or, do you ever miss the old life? The truth is, I miss parts of it every single day. I miss unlocking the bookstore in the morning, the quiet before customers arrived. I miss the way the cafe smelled when the first pot of coffee brewed. I miss recommending a book and seeing someone's face change when they realized it was exactly what they needed. I miss being known not online, not performatively, but locally, quietly, by people who waved when they passed the window. That life is gone. Justice didn't bring it back. What justice did was give the ending weight. Ronald is serving his sentence now. Minimum security, but still real walls, real time, real consequences. He wrote me a letter once, 6 pages. Half apologies, half explanations, all too late. I didn't respond. Not because I hate him, but because I no longer need him to understand me. Marlene will be away longer. She thought she was smarter than systems built specifically to catch people like her. Confidence has a way of turning into carelessness when it's fed for too long. As for me, I'm still in the same apartment, still above the laundromat, still working a job no one dreams about when they're young. But something has shifted. I sleep now. I drink my coffee slowly instead of like it's fuel for survival. I've started volunteering at the public library on Saturdays, helping with children's reading hours. The kids don't care about my past. They just care that I remember which dinosaur book is their favorite. Sometimes when I'm shelving returns, I catch my reflection in the glass. I look older, thinner, quieter. But there's a steadiness there I didn't have before. Soft doesn't mean weak. Soft means I didn't let bitterness turn me into someone unrecognizable. It means I chose truth over comfort and patience over spectacle. It means I trusted that consequences don't need witnesses to be real. I didn't win in the way stories like to promise, but I survived in a way that matters. And somewhere beneath concrete and arrogance and carefully constructed lies, something hard finally cracked.